A very good morning, everyone. I'm sure you have all enjoyed listening to Sir John Key. As you've heard, he's also the board member for PaloAlto Networks. It was very interesting chat. So now let me introduce myself. My name is DJ Lamba. I'm from Westcon, and I look after the PaloAlto Networks business here in New Zealand. I would like to welcome you to Westcon Imagine's first webinar, in which you will hear about how PaloAlto Networks can help you with the business continuity and enabling a secure mobile workplace. This session will be presented by Jason Georgie, who is the Field CTO for Prisma Access at PaloAlto Networks. Before I hand over to Jason, we have a couple of housekeeping points. So firstly, please note that this is a 20-minute session. If you have any questions for Jason, can you please send them to me in the question and answer field, and we'll try to answer all your questions at the end of the session. And secondly, you will be directed to a quick 1-minute survey at the end of this webinar. And if you answer the questions in our survey, you will be in to win a classic arcade game for your office for a week. So please make sure you do fill in the survey. And enough further ado, over to you, Jason.
So thank you very much, DJ. I appreciate the introduction. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for taking some time out of your day to join me today as we talk about business continuity and enabling a secure mobile workforce. Obviously, this is something that's top of mind for everybody right now, given the current global condition. So hopefully you get something out of this and that you feel that this is a valuable session to you. I'll go ahead and get started. Really what we're talking about right now is uncharted territory for us for the most part. We've over time prepared for something like this back when I guess avian flu was potentially a thing, H1N1. We all looked at how do we plan capacity around business continuity? How do we make sure users can work when we are in a situation like this? And the whole idea was, let's upgrade enough capacity for our remote users to get them working and get them past a certain point, whatever that point may be. It may be a matter of getting email to some executives and an application here and there. But the way work has evolved over the last, 10, 15 years, it's much more collaborative, much more face-to-face, and that includes virtual, like we are today. So what that means is the tools that our employees are using every single day to work have evolved since what we used to plan for before, which might have been access to a couple applications. But since now we're in this position where we don't know how long this is going to last, and we need our workforce or our students, right, if we're a university or an educational organization, working to full capacity and productivity, right? And so now we need to make sure that we have the right type of capacity in place when we need it. So some quick observations. So being the field CTO at PaloAlto Networks, I talk to executives all the time around what they're doing with cloud and security and how they interject with each other to make the business stronger and make it more agile. And so before COVID-19 even happened, not even, a couple months ago, let alone, potentially November, these are discussions that were already happening around, let's start leaning into a cloud first type mentality where we understand the benefits of cloud. We understand that there's limitations with VPN gateways and their scalability. How do we improve user experience and performance when we're backhauling traffic to a data center and then out to the internet for access to cloud, SaaS, and things like that? And then just the overall lack of security that comes with VPN natively. VPN creates a secure connection between people, but it's not a security capability, meaning there's no inspection in line natively with VPNs. So these were already concerns before all of this happened. And now all of a sudden, as it happened, we've got things like organizations not only saying we need to move to cloud, but when we've now upgraded this capacity for access into things, we need to move faster on our cloud journey. And the reason for that is because we've identified risk by having these apps static in the data center right now. It's a challenge. So now we've got users working and coming in, but the apps aren't functioning properly because we have people coming in over long haul, slower broadband connections trying to access these applications that may be latency or chatter sensitive. So things like that are a challenge right now. The VPN piece itself, I would say on average, the organizations that I talk to, about 30% of their workforce was mobile ready or work from home capable, which has jumped to about 85 to 90% right now. Obviously, all knowledge workers are working remotely if and when possible. So that's a huge jump. Like I said, the tools and the apps in use have changed, right? We're talking about streaming services like WebEx and Zoom and things like that, and media-rich type content, even as work tools. And then the hairpin of cloud and SaaS. If you are backhauling users, which leads into the next one for VPN and remote access, not only is the traffic coming into the data center, now super saturated, but that hairpin back out to the internet for SaaS and internet access, and then bringing that traffic back through that same connection, that's what's really causing some real issues right now for a lot of organizations. And then, so backhauling, obviously is a problem when it comes to cloud and SaaS efficiency. And so what's an answer? Potentially splitting VPN traffic, where you have, only data center traffic going to the data center, everything else gets split off. But obviously that now starts to introduce new risk into the equation, where it's not only the applications themselves, but do we have visibility into what's happening with the application, right? So now we've got this situation where we've improved user experience a little bit, but now we've got new risk. And then the VPN security piece. So now, it was get people on as quickly as possible for the last 8 weeks, and now we're going to go back and worry about security later. It's a challenge, and it's a challenge we're all trying to deal with. Unless obviously you're in a very good position or it hasn't been a challenge for you, congratulations. But for most of us, we're still dealing with some of these in some way or shape. So what are some of the challenges with the existing options that are out there? So we talked a little bit about full tunnel VPN. Okay, that's giving you a better security overall posture because you can send all traffic into a spot for then security inspection and things like that. So you get that, that inspection zone capability for all traffic. Split tunnel VPN, like I said, it's fine in terms of helping user experience, bad for security because now you're losing some visibility into where certain users are going on the internet and then what type of traffic behavior is going on. So now you're fully reliant on endpoint protection like antivirus and endpoint firewalls and things like that to try to make sure that the device posture stays okay. And then adding point products is another thing, right? If you've got something that's saturating your remote access environment and you can't scale that environment up anymore, are you adding something else to supplement or augment what you already have in place? And what kind of challenges is that bringing now from a policy perspective? And then, well, now we've got 2 or 3 remote access capabilities. It's very complicated from a management perspective and a user experience. Maybe it's one type of remote access solution for a set of apps and then another for another set of apps and so on and so forth, which can be a big challenge, obviously. So when we're talking about, let's talk about and focus in on the remote access capacity challenge real quick. So this is a very rudimentary diagram of how things were just a few months ago, right? Where we had users working in branches, accessing resources in the data center and then out to the internet from there. And then we had a few mobile users that were bouncing around coming in over VPN. Well, obviously, given the current challenge that's presented by COVID-19, everybody's working from home, or everybody that can is working from home, which in a good way has reduced the burden on some of the remote sites. So there's no traffic coming from them, into the data center now, or maybe they had direct internet access already. But either way, that fat green arrow coming down is the new capacity coming into the data center. That is a huge challenge. So organizations are trying to scale that by adding VPN appliances, concentrators of some sort. But there's a whole lot of dependent infrastructure around those concentrators, right? Anywhere from the internet circuit itself to the edge and border routers, to load balancers, to IP address pools, all of that stuff also needs a capacity increase, to deal with what's happening in an efficient way. So this is where the bottleneck becomes a reality, right? And it's becoming more painful as we get more users working and as they're using their full set of applications they're used to every single day. So what are some of the solutions behind that? Well, if I had to cover it off, here's what I would suggest organizations start looking at. I know there's a problem today, but you don't want to solve a problem that's very tactical when there's a strategic implication to that. Like I said, potentially adding additional products or something like that that's going to complicate your environment for the next 1 to 3 years. And that's not really what we want to do. Some organizations have conceded to have to do that. But if we could look at something fresh right now and say, how would we do this in a more efficient way? Let's provide a more direct path to cloud and SaaS from the beginning. So let's look at where access is coming from and where it's going, and how do we make a more efficient path between those two. Build security in, so it's not an afterthought that we try to bolt on after with downstream firewalls or something like that. that the traffic is inspected from the beginning. It's just built in. Offload as much of the remote access capacity as you can from your data centers to a cloud service, something that can auto scale when needed. So not just, this type of event where everybody's working from home, but software pushes, webcasts and big events that are going to further complicate and congest internet links and things like that. Globally distribute your access points. If you're in a multinational or global organization, you want as many points of presence as possible. All that's going to do is obviously alleviate the burden from a few concentrated, but also provide a better on-ramp, and user experience for those users by having something closer to them to get on and get access right away. Incorporating zero trust. This is very important when we talk about security and inspection, that's all well and good, but everything's moving towards identity-based access and security, adaptive identity-based access. The root of that is zero trust, right? Making sure you have user context, access, and they're only able to access what they're given access to by policy. And maybe that can change given certain variables like what type of device they're on, what location they're in. So these are all things that we should be thinking about right now as we look at expanding solutions. And then finally, let's consolidate. Like I said, we don't want too many point products. It can become a burden. Let's get away from that mentality and let's look at how we create a more efficient ecosystem for remote users. When it comes to business continuity, the more complicated it is, the harder it's going to be to maintain it in the long run, or if something like this were to pop up again in the future. So how do we propose this, right? Prisma Access is what I'm here to talk to you all about. Prisma Access is our cloud-delivered remote access and just access solution, right? It's tailored towards remote users and branches to access anything wherever it is. So the users are anywhere, what they're accessing is anywhere. It doesn't really matter. It's an interconnect between all things. And it's based on the principles of the Secure Access Service Edge, the SASE capability, which I'll get into momentarily. So now let's take a look at how Prisma Access would solve the problem we just outlined with the capacity going into the data center. So if we went ahead and shifted the data center out a little bit, shift it left, and then we insert Prisma Access. Again, it's our cloud-delivered security capability. This is what it would look like for your remote users. So with globally distributed points of presence all over the place, mobile users connect into an edge location as close to them as possible. And once they do connect in, they leverage the cloud's fiber network, its own backbone, as transit from ingress to egress. And because we're using public cloud services to deliver our capability, we have natural tier one peering with cloud providers, so AWS, Azure, Google, AliCloud, and all those big guys, and all of the SaaS providers that leverage those cloud service providers to deliver their own service. So we've got tier one peering between public cloud and SaaS across the board, and then a good internet experience for web browsing traffic, and including things like SSL decryption, sandboxing, et cetera, all with the inspection built in. So it's no different whether if you're a PaloAlto customer that has leveraged our next-gen firewalls before, you understand that we have full user application-based inspection going on at all times, no different with our cloud service. And so when things start to return more to normal and we go back to our branches and remote offices, you can connect up the branches as well. Same type of thing. Connect up to the Prisma Access Cloud, leverage that for transport, including site to site. So if you want to start getting away from some of your site to site, VPN that includes a ISP circuit and 2 firewalls on each side, you could leverage something like Prisma Access to provide that connectivity. So now you can see how you're starting to consolidate access methods. So like I said before, when you start thinking about just access, don't necessarily divide them up into internet access and VPN access and data center access and all those access types. You can start to see where you can just provide access between a user, wherever they are, and the service that they're trying to access wherever it is. It doesn't really matter. So why a SASE-based approach? So a lot of people give Gartner some grief. I am one of them, but really they got this one right. They announced the term SASE and this concept over the last summer, and what it is a convergence of network and security services. It makes a lot of sense to me. And the reason for that is because they said, hey, to use security and network vendors, do more, right? When you look at where everything's going, now let's go back to one of the first slides I had where organizations were already going cloud first, and we have mobile user challenges. When you think about how our users are today, right now, where we have a lot of applications sitting in cloud and SaaS, and right now all of our users are working from home, what is the network for them right now? It's the internet. And so when the internet's becoming that medium that is going to get a user to the service they're consuming wherever they are, obviously there are things that you can't control about it. So what's the next best thing you can do is control the transport as much as you can and put security controls around it as best you can. So that's what SASE is all about. It's a convergence of network and security services in a single delivered platform. So this is what it looks like for us at Palo Alto with Prisma Access. So if we look across the capabilities that we provide natively, they're in the boxes here. The ones in blue that are highlighted there are the core capabilities that Gartner calls out that you really need to be able to deliver natively to qualify as SASE. So that's a CASB, Zero Trust Network Access capability, a Cloud Secure Web Gateway capability, Firewall as a Service, and SD-WAN. So these are things we offer natively. Like I said, we launched our own SD-WAN product in November of 2019. We recently closed and completed our CloudGenix acquisition just about 3 weeks ago. So we have a good SD-WAN footprint that's only going to be getting stronger as we go. So we'll be able to continue enhancing our SASE posture. So what does our architecture look like? It's one thing to say, hey, I think it makes sense to move some of these services to the cloud, but what does that mean for me and my environment? Because there's a devil that I know, right? Which is, I know I have capacity issues, but they're mine and I can plan for them, or I can just say, hey, it's going to be slow right now. Other things are around, I'm giving up control, right? So if something like cloud for security or cloud delivered security is new to you, these are some of the things that we're helping mitigate those concerns. First of all, it's a single management or a single data plane per customer. Every customer gets their own instance on the cloud. So there's no competition of resources from a compute side, a load balancing side, things like that. It's all virtual and instantiated for each customer. The only thing multi-tenant really for us is the management capability, right? So that's where we have our cloud operations that is using APIs and things like that to manage the cloud instances for each customer. But every customer is dedicated. Customer dedicated routing, customer dedicated IP addressing, all of those types of things. So it's just really a VPC of security that leverages across our cloud. And then, so how does that work when it comes to scaling? Scaling is really important, especially right now. And I will say that our cloud service has grown. We doubled the number of users and customers in the last 8 weeks due to COVID-19. And we handled it effortlessly. We did not have to upgrade capacity throughout our data centers or anything like that because we didn't build our data centers for the cloud. We are leveraging public cloud services ourselves, AWS and Google Cloud Platform. So with that, we're able to take advantage of their elastic scale on the compute side. And so it's a huge advantage for us that we can pass along to you. Not only can we take advantage of the scalability, but what I showed in that one diagram with the traffic flow through the cloud, we're able to leverage Google's and Amazon's fiber network, their own backbone for transit once the user ingresses all the way through to egress. And that egress could be a close pop with a tier 1 peer to another cloud service. So we're also eliminating that middle mile variability that comes with a lot of these types of cloud services. But for example purposes, auto scaling with cloud native architecture, let's just say we have all things are normalized at this point. We've got 3 customer tenants as an example. Tenant 1, has a big event going on, so they're scaling up as needed, right? There's a whole lot of traffic coming through. So our cloud ops identifies that traffic and says, we've got an event. We need to scale up. We increase the instance seamlessly. There's nothing you need to do. You don't call us to say, hey, we've got this event going on. Can you help scale us? It just happens automatically. This is auto scaling. But then when the event's over or decreases in scope, we give that capacity back to the cloud, right? So it's efficient cloud use. So we're not building things up that now we have to continue to pay for or you have to continue to pay for. This is just automatic and it peaks and valleys as needed. No additional cost, no additional anything, no management of it. So this is why a lot of organizations are coming to us right now because we are allowing traffic to burst and do all these things without any impact to anybody else. So our POPs are located in over 100 locations, roughly 105 or 6 at this point, 76 countries. So great presence, including Australia, New Zealand in that area. So we have a pretty good presence there as well. I was just there a couple months ago doing, right before this all got really bad, speaking to a lot of organizations out there about this solution and how we can help some of the current issues well before COVID became what it is now. So again, just wrapping this up, Strata is what we are going to be branding our firewall as a platform. So that includes all consumption capabilities. So I'm talking about Prisma Access here today. That is our cloud-delivered firewall as a service, but it's the same firewall capability that is present on our next-gen firewall appliance or the VM series. So if you're an existing Palo Alto customer, all the security capabilities that you've come to understand and trust with those other deployment types, you can now extend and scale your environment with Prisma Access. But besides, all the subs, the subscriptions that go on to the other firewall consumables are part of Prisma Access by default. So Wildfire for sandboxing, data filtering, and things like that are all included as part of the capability. All managed through Panorama, so same management interface. You don't need to add another product. It all works the same way. And then it all plays into the Cortex, environment for security, orchestration, automation, and response, machine learning around alerting and logging and that type of thing. So just some key takeaways as I wrap this up. Comprehensive capabilities. These are things you need to look for when you're choosing your next solution. What capabilities are available to you through a single platform? Okay, and then if something's not available to you natively, what are you going to have to supplement over time to get you where you need to go? Supporting all apps or users. We don't care where the data is. We don't care where the user is. It's one capability, one platform for access to everything. Not two different products, one for internet security, one for private access. It's one thing. That's why we call it just Prisma Access. And then architecture matters. Not all clouds are created equal. We didn't build our cloud, like I said, and try to pass that cost on to you or the instability of it. We're using public cloud services in use by millions of customers for millions of mission critical workloads today, and we're able to take advantage of that through a cloud native delivered service. So with that, DJ, I'll open it up to any questions that have come in.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, this was really good. I'm very conscious of the time at the moment, so we've gone over our allotted time. So what I will do, I think we will answer the questions via email, or we're going to be contacting the people who've asked the questions. For now, I think we should let the attendees have some time and get ready for the next session. The only key question I wanted to ask you, which out of the question answers there, is that Prisma Access, how... There's another question coming. Now, okay, so Prisma Access, how much do you think it's important in the current time zone for New Zealand, especially because of the COVID situation? So New Zealand, how does it affect in New Zealand, do you think?
Well, I think it's usable by anybody that has a scalability issue with whatever they're using for remote access. So if there's a challenge, you need to offload inbound capacity for your remote users, it's something that you can offload to a cloud service that you're never going to have to worry about planning for scale again. So if this were to pop up again, or wave 2 comes on and it's stronger than wave 1 was, and everybody's back home and everybody's working from home now for even potentially longer, or whatever that may look like, we don't know. At least now you don't have to worry about trying to plan for capacity again. So you leverage something like Prisma Access now to increase your scale and capacity. And then if something happens again, it's just still there. It's not something you have to go back and try to, continue to increase capacity for on your own. It's just going to handle the volume as you need it.
Perfect. Thank you. There's another question come in, I think, which is an important one from Sean, asking that if we have a local node in NZ. Sean, yes, we do.
Yeah.
Any more questions before we go forward? Okay, so there's a last question here. Jason, let's try and answer this. AOG federal use cases demands a degree of assurance and a degree of sensitivity in terms of government rules and regulations. Where does this sit in terms of government?
We've worked with governments for a long time. More on the firewall side, Prisma Access is getting there now. We do a lot with the UK government. We're starting to do stuff with the UK government now that we've entered FedRAMP in process status. So we do take these types of things like data transfer across borders and things like that very seriously. So we do have a lot of solutions to make sure that your data is sovereign. If that's a concern, what I would advise you to do is reach out to your account specialist, or DJ can connect you with somebody if you're not a Palo customer yet. They can then go back and get their proper legal recs and terms around what that would look like for your particular country and your government regulation. But we do, I mean, we with 70,000 customers globally, 2 billion users using our security, a lot of those are already government agencies that we have, we have taken to heart across our product set. So Prisma Access is just the next one that is going to adopt those types of sensitivities as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Jason. Another question, I think, which, okay, there's quite a few questions coming in. Now I'm going to try and read this one. This was a good one. I am sorry. Okay. Yes, okay. So with licensing for Prisma Access at minimum 200 user level, it limits the ability for SME and medium-sized businesses in NZ specifically to access this. And will there be any changes to this at any time?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think some of the reason for that was more because it wouldn't be cost advantage or advantageous to you, mainly because of the fact that with such a small user footprint, typically that means that you can consolidate users into a single gateway at a much lower price point than you would be able to do with Prisma Access. So I think it's less about wanting to do it for a smaller organization than it is. It may not be worth it to you. Now, if you're 200 highly distributed employees all over the world, maybe that makes a little more sense. And I would talk to your account team again about that just to see if there's something that they can do. We'll put however many users on there for you, but to guarantee an instance through our service, it may be something like a minimum threshold of users that need to be provisioned. But if it's 50 to 100 users, we typically don't do a whole lot with that just due to cost, at the end of the day, to be honest.
Okay, brilliant. Jason, I think let's just take one last question before we finish off. So for our partner community, what are the 3 key technical differentiations you want them to take away today and when they're thinking about positioning Prisma Access over competing vendors?
Yeah, sure. First one is security. Because we're a firewall-based architecture, we're not a proxy. We inspect all ports and protocols. So proxies by default and by nature are limited to what they can actually look at because of the way they terminate a session completely and then create a new session on behalf of the user. There are only 4 protocols by design that can handle that type of transaction stop and restart: web, secure web, FTP, and DNS. All other traffic either breaks or something happens that you have to add to a bypass list. So with a firewall-based architecture, it's a stream. It's more of a stream through our single pass architecture that does not do that type of complete termination and restart. So we can inspect all ports and protocols, including Office 365 and things like that. The next would be the cloud architecture itself, is making sure that other cloud providers out there, some have adopted public cloud services as well now. Others, they started with building their own clouds, but those that are still on their own clouds right now are going to continue to run into scale issues. And the only way they can scale them is by adding more servers to their environment. So that's more servers, more servers, more servers, scale that they can't give back if they don't need it. So it's sunk costs. So there's a higher cost of doing business with them, and it's not as reliable as something like, say, Google's cloud or Amazon's cloud. So consider those things. And the third would just be breadth and scope of what we're able to do. Like I said, world's largest security company, as far as the number of users and customers on our 3 firewall platforms in general, over 70,000, 2 billion users. We see a lot of threats with that. So our threat prevention is taking in telemetry from all of our customers. It's seeing each new 0-day or whatever, creating whatever signature or hash, pushing that out to all customers within 30 seconds. So everybody's getting the quickest possible updates to what we see out there. So those would be the 3 key things, just scope of the number of threats that we see, better security inspection overall, and then cloud native capabilities at scale.
Great. Thank you, Jason. Thanks for answering these questions. So everybody, thank you so much for your time today as well. Now, I understand we've gone over the time as Jason has just put my details on the screen. So if you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to me and I will connect you with the local Palo Alto team or we'll try to answer them for you. And before we go, I want to make sure you're aware you will get that survey once we close the session. Please do not forget to fill in the survey to get into the Classic Arcade game.